I don't know how much time we still have before silence becomes permanent. And that's the part that terrifies me, because people think love disappears loudly, with screaming, betrayal, slammed doors, final words. But the kind of loss that keeps me awake at night, it happens quietly, slowly. Two people start postponing the truth. One difficult conversation becomes 10. One vulnerable moment becomes another week of pretending everything is fine. And then, one morning, the person you were supposed to grow old beside starts feeling emotionally far away, while still lying right next to you. That's why I'm talking to you tonight, because if I wait any longer, I might lose the chance to tell you what has been tearing me apart inside. And maybe you don't even realize it yet, but something dangerous happens when a man loves a woman deeply while also being afraid of her. Not afraid of her anger, not afraid of rejection, afraid of needing her too much. Have you ever loved someone so much that you started hiding the depth of it from them? Not because it wasn't real, but because it was too real? That's what happened to me. The truth is, I've spent most of my life building things that made me look fearless. Companies, ideas, visions, impossible missions. The world rewards men like me for certainty, for control, for confidence under pressure. People see ambition and assume it means emotional strength. But you know what nobody tells you? A man can build the future and still panic when one woman stops answering his messages with the same warmth she used to. I noticed it. Every small shift, every delayed response, every tired smile, every moment you said, "I'm okay," while your eyes quietly asked why I felt so far away. And I hated myself for seeing it, because once you notice emotional distance, you can't unsee it. So I started compensating, working harder, thinking harder, planning harder, as if productivity could fix loneliness, as if achievement could replace emotional presence. But it doesn't. And I think somewhere deep down, you knew that before I did. Tell me something honestly. How long can a woman feel emotionally alone before she finally stops reaching for the man she loves? Because that question has been haunting me lately. I keep imagining you getting tired. Not angry, not dramatic, just tired. Tired of waiting for me to fully open up. Tired of trying to decode what I feel. Tired of sensing there's some things I'm not saying. And the worst part? You'd be right, there is something I haven't been saying. Something I should told you much earlier. But every time I tried, I convinced myself it was better to wait for the perfect moment. And now I'm realizing perfect moments are where honest people go to hide. You know what scares me most? It's not losing success, it's not failure. It's not public humiliation. It's the possibility that one day you stop believing I'm emotionally safe enough to spend the rest of your life with. That kind of loss doesn't recover easily, especially with a woman like you. Because women like you don't leave impulsively. You leave emotionally first, quickly, piece by piece, hope by hope, and by the time the man notices, your heart has already started grieving him while he's still standing there. I know that because lately, I've caught moments where your silence feels heavier than your words, and maybe I deserve that. Maybe I created it. Do you know how painful it is to realize the woman you love has been begging for emotional honesty while you've been handing her emotional performance instead? I kept giving you solutions when you needed softness. I kept giving you plans when you needed presence. I kept trying to impress you while slowly starving the relationship itself. And the tragic thing is, Abby thought that I was doing it for us. I thought if I became more successful, more stable, more accomplished, then eventually you'd feel secure enough to never leave. But love doesn't work that way, does it? A woman doesn't stay because a man becomes impressive. She stays because she feels chosen emotionally, safely, consistently. And I'm terrified that somewhere along the way, you stopped feeling chosen, not because I loved you less, but because I stopped showing it in the way your heart could actually recognize. Sometimes I wonder if you cry quietly after our conversations. Sometimes I wonder if you've started emotionally preparing yourself for disappointment. Sometimes I wonder if there's another version of your future forming in your mind, one where I'm no longer in it. And honestly, that thought destroys me, because I need you to understand something before it's too late. You were never just another chapter in my life. You became the place my mind returns to when everything else feels meaningless. Do you realize how rare that is for someone like me? My entire life has been motion, pressure, noise, deadlines, constant expectation, but you became the only place that ever made me want to slow down. And maybe I never told you that clearly enough. Maybe I assumed you already knew. But love dies in assumptions. That's the lesson I'm learning too late. And the hardest part is, I can feel myself standing at the edge of a decision I don't fully understand yet. Because there's a difference between loving someone and being brave enough to let them fully see you. I'm not sure I've been brave enough. Not completely. And I think you've felt that hesitation every single time I almost opened my heart, then changed the subject before the truth fully escaped. I haven't told you the real reason yet, not the real one. There's something deeper underneath all of this. Something ugly, something I've been trying to outrun for years. And if I tell you, it could change the way you see me forever. But if I don't tell you soon, maybe think I might lose you anyway. And strangely, that possibility suddenly feels more terrifying than being fully exposed. If you're still here listening to me, maybe subscribe quietly and tell me where in the world you're listening from tonight. It would mean more to me than you probably realize, because right now this doesn't feel like a video. It feels like the last honest conversation I might get to have with you before everything changes. You know what's strange? The closer I get to telling you the truth, the more I realize why I've been avoiding it. Because once a woman truly sees the wounds a man has hidden his entire life, she makes a decision. She either moves closer, or she slowly starts letting go. And lately, I've been terrified. I've already given you too many reasons to let go. I almost didn't come back tonight, not because I stopped loving you. Because I finally realized how dangerous honesty becomes once you've hidden parts of yourself for too long. There's a moment every man reaches eventually, especially the ones who spend their lives pretending to be emotionally unshakable. A moment where he understands that if he keeps protecting himself, he will eventually destroy the very relationship he's trying to preserve. I think I reached that moment with you. And the frightening part is, I don't know if I reached it in time. Have you ever felt someone pulling away emotionally while still saying all the right things? That's what I've been doing to you. And I need you to understand something before I tell you the reason. It was never because you weren't enough. It was because you became important enough to hurt me. That changes everything. When a woman matters casually, a man stays relaxed. But when she becomes the person whose absence could emotionally ruin him, he starts acting differently. He becomes careful. Defensive, controlled, sometimes cold without meaning to be. Not because the love disappeared, because the fear arrived, and you felt it, didn't you? You felt the moments where I almost said something vulnerable, then redirected the conversation. You felt the hesitation in my voice when you asked me what I was really feeling. You felt me holding parts of myself back, like I was trying to survive something. You were right. I was. The truth is, long before I met you, I convinced myself that emotional dependence was dangerous. I watched people destroy themselves over love. I watched men lose direction because one relationship collapsed. I watched people become emotionally weak the moment they needed someone too much. So I made a private decision years ago. I would never need anyone deeply enough to break me. And then you happened. Quietly, unexpectedly. You didn't force your way into my life. You didn't chase me. You didn't demand anything from me. You just slowly became the one person whose opinion could affect my entire emotional state without even trying. Do you understand how terrifying that is for someone like me? One soft sentence from you could calm my entire nervous system. One distant response could ruin my whole night. And instead of admitting that, I started hiding it. Because I thought if you ever realized how deeply I loved you, you'd eventually gain the power to destroy me. So I created emotional distance before you could. God. Saying that out loud makes me hate myself a little. Because now I can see what it must have felt like from your side. You were probably loving me sincerely, while constantly feeling this invisible wall between us. You probably wondered why I could discuss the future so confidently, but struggled to discuss my emotions directly. You probably questioned yourself in silence, and that's the part that hurts me most. The woman I loved was slowly feeling insecure because of wounds she didn't create. That isn't fair to you. But I still haven't told you the worst part. because the real damage started the moment I realized you were capable of leaving. Not threatening, not manipulating, actually leaving. Do you know when I realized it? It was during one of those quiet conversations where your voice sounded calm, but emotionally exhausted. You stopped trying to convince me to open up. And that terrified me more than any argument ever could. Because when a woman stops fighting for emotional closeness, something inside her has already started shutting down. That night, I barely slept, not because we argued. Because I saw the future for the first time, a future where I become one more emotionally unavailable man you eventually recover from. And I couldn't breathe thinking about it, so I almost told you everything. Almost. But then another fear entered my mind. What if the truth makes you leave faster? You see, there's something I've never admitted to you, not fully. There was a period in my life where I became so emotionally isolated that I stopped believing real love was sustainable. I started believing relationships always decay eventually, that intimacy naturally fades, that everyone disappoints each other in the end, and when a man believes that deeply enough, he unconsciously starts preparing for loss before loss even happens. That's what I've been doing to us. Preparing for your departure while begging internally for you to stay. Can you imagine how exhausting that is? To love someone intensely while simultaneously expecting them to disappear? Some nights I would stare at our conversations, wondering if you were slowly falling out of love with me. Other nights I convinced myself you deserved someone emotionally healthier. Someone softer, someone less damaged. Someone who didn't hesitate every time vulnerability appeared. And this is the part I'm ashamed to admit. There was even a moment recently where I almost convinced myself to emotionally detach from you first. Not because I wanted another woman, because I thought losing you slowly might hurt less if I started becoming emotionally numb now. But the second that thought entered my mind, something inside me broke. Because I realized I wasn't protecting myself anymore. I was protecting my fear, and fear has already stolen too many beautiful things from my life. Tell me honestly, how many relationships die not because love disappears, but because two wounded people keep hiding from each other? I think about that question constantly now, especially when I imagine what you may not be telling me. What if you've already cried over me more than once? What if you've already felt lonely beside me? What if part of you has already started grieving a future you once believed in? I notice things, you know. The pauses in your voice, the emotional caution, the moments you sound like you're trying not to expect too much from me anymore. That last one destroys me. Because the woman I love should never feel like she has to emotionally reduce herself just to avoid disappointment. And yet, AP think that's exactly what's been happening. I need to ask you something difficult. If I finally tell you everything, if I stop hiding completely, if I show you the parts of me I've spent years keeping buried, will you still look at me the same way? Or will you realize I'm not the man you thought I was? Because there's one truth I still haven't said out loud, one truth that explains why I panic every time love starts feeling permanent. And once you hear it, there's no going back to the version of me you currently know. I need you to stay with me for this part, because this is where everything almost fell apart, and maybe it already did. There's something I've hidden from you, not because I wanted to deceive you, but because I was ashamed of how deeply it shaped me. Years ago, before you, I loved someone who slowly taught me that vulnerability could be used against you. Not all at once, not dramatically. It happened quietly. Every insecurity I revealed eventually became a weakness I regretted exposing. Every emotional confession felt safe in the moment, until one day it became evidence that I was too much. Too emotional, too difficult to carry. So I adapted. I became calmer, more controlled, more unreadable. The world rewarded me for it. People called me disciplined, focused, visionary. But what they were really praising was emotional survival. Then you came into my life and ruined the system I built to protect myself, because you didn't ask for perfection. You asked for honesty. And do you know how terrifying honesty becomes after someone once made you regret it? Every time you looked into my eyes and softly asked, "What's wrong?" It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Part of me wanted to jump toward you completely, and another part wanted to run before I became dependent on your love. That's the war you've been feeling inside me, not confusion about whether I love you. Confusion about whether love is safe, and lately, that fear has started poisoning everything. A few weeks ago, I almost made the biggest mistake of my life. You probably felt it without understanding it fully. I became distant, short, emotionally unavailable. But what you didn't know is that another woman entered my orbit during that time, not because I was searching for her. Because emotionally damaged people attract distractions when intimacy starts becoming too real. She was easy, no emotional risk, no deep conversations, no possibility of heartbreak, and for one dangerous moment, I considered disappearing into that simplicity instead of fighting for us. God, even admitting that makes me sick. Because the entire time she was talking to me, all I could think about was you, your voice, your patience, your eyes, when you're trying not to cry. That's when I realized something horrifying. I wasn't at risk of losing you to another man. I was at risk of losing you because of my own fear. And that realization shattered me, because suddenly I saw the future clearly. You eventually walking away. Not because I didn't love you enough, but because I lacked the courage to love you honestly. That night, I broke down alone, not dramatically, quietly, the kind of crying a man does when he realizes he's becoming the reason his own future is collapsing. And the worst part? I still haven't told you the deepest truth yet. So here it is. The truth I've been trying to outrun since the moment I fell in love with you. The reason I panic when things become emotionally real. The reason I pull away after moments of closeness. The reason I sometimes look at you with love in my eyes, while still keeping part of myself hidden. It's because deep down, I never truly believed someone could know me completely and still stay, that's it. Not success, not ambition, not another woman, just fear, a quiet, humiliating fear that if you ever saw the full weight of my scars, my contradictions, my emotional exhaustion, eventually you would look at me differently, and once I understood how much I loved you, that fear became unbearable. Because losing you would not feel like losing a relationship anymore. It would feel like losing home. Do you understand now why I hesitated so much? You became the one person capable of calming parts of me I spent years hiding from the world. Around everyone else, I could remain composed, strategic, certain, but around you, I wanted to rest. And men like me don't always know how to survive that softness. That's why I almost sabotaged. Not because I wanted freedom, because love this deep forces a man to confront himself honestly. And sometimes the hardest thing in the world isn't building a future. It's believing you deserve to be loved inside one. The night I nearly lost you emotionally, something changed in me forever. I realized I could survive failure. I could survive public humiliation. I could survive loneliness. But I could not survive spending the rest of life wondering what would happen if I had simply been honest with you before it was too late. So let me finally say the thing I should have said much earlier. I love you in a way that scares me, not temporarily, not casually, not conditionally. I love you with the kind of depth that makes a man question every defense mechanism he ever built. And I know I haven't made that easy for you. I know there were nights you felt emotionally alone beside me. Moments you doubted yourself because I struggled to communicate what was happening inside me. Times you probably wondered if I was slowly drifting away. I wasn't drifting away. I was fighting myself while trying not to lose you. And if you're still here after hearing all of this, then maybe love isn't about finding two perfect people after all. Maybe it's just about finding one person worth becoming honest for you. It was always you, not because you rescued me. Not because you completed me, because your presence forced me to stop hiding. And maybe that's what real love actually is. Not obsession, not fantasy, not dependency. Just two people standing in front of each other without armor, hoping the other person stays anyway. So, if you're asking whether I'm finally done running, yes. Because I would rather risk rejection with honesty than lose you slowly through emotional silence. And if someday we look back on this version of us, this fragile, terrified, imperfect version, I hope we remember something important. Love almost slipped through our hands not because it was weak, but because it was real enough to frighten us both. And tonight, for the first time in a very long time, Abim no longer afraid to let you see me completely.